and hunting the wren.
Yeah. How was that?
That was lots of fun when we were kids. It was a way of getting money too. Went around if you could play an instrument, and some went that couldn't play an instrument, but dressed up in various costumes, went around from house to house and did your singing or whatever. Hopefully they didn't know you. A lot of times they did, but usually go in groups of 3 or 4.
That was the Wren Boys.
That was the Wren Boys, and divide the spoils and then when you got back.
What other holidays do you remember?
Of course, St. Patrick's Day and the Shamrock.
Yeah,
of course, St. Patrick's Day was of course at one time in Ireland the pubs, everything closed down totally for St. Patrick's Day, including bars.
Yeah.
They were not allowed to open on St. Patrick's Day, and there was it was a day of reverence as much as anything else. Of course, everybody had the bigger the piece of shamrock, the better. You almost looked like you had half an acre on your coats at sometimes. They were the two main Easter, of course, as well, and the Easter eggs and the lots of going to church on Easter. My father used to say after Easter he had a prayer arch in his back from kneeling, and he went Good Friday, Holy Thursday, Good Friday, Easter Saturday, and Easter Sunday, all 4 days.
We had interviewed people from the north of Ireland, and of course we'd always mention the 12th of July. Did that have any significance to
Absolutely
you guys?
none whatsoever.
No.
Nothing.
The 15th of August, was that a...
It was a holiday, yes. Later on when we were teens we used to go maybe to Dublin or something like that for the 15th of August.
It was a day of sport.
The day of sport, yeah, right. A day to get out, and that's it.
One of the other things I want to ask you about is, it was big in Ireland, and I wanted to find out how it was treated down your end in Tipperary, was death. When somebody in the family or a neighbour or somebody died.
Yeah.
What was the traditions?
Well, for years and years, there was nobody in my family died. They were either dead before I was born, and when my grandfather died, he died in England. So there were none in my family. There wasn't. But when I was a teenager, at least, a young kid and a teenager. But I remember a neighbour dying. He died pretty young, and there was a big family of those. There were the next door neighbours. There was 12, called the Quins, and there was 12 Quins and 11 of us, and we never fell out. In all the years, we never had arguments. We never fell out. We were always great friends, and people in the next village used to say, if you say anything to one of them, you say to all 23. Remember that? So yes, it was. And I remember he died when they were quite young, and they waked him at the house. And I remember my mom going down to prepare him and shave him for the wake. She did that.
So, when did you decide that you wanted to leave Tipperary and head for America?
I went into business myself. I had a business myself. I did what's called in Ireland shop fitting. I served my apprenticeship at cabinet making, and then I went into more the furniture end of it, and used to make furniture. I used to employ between 4 and 8 people, men. Most of the time 3 or 4 around that, but when I got busy. I did work for the local churches, a lot of church work, pews and altars, stuff like that. I did also work for furniture shops that sold used furniture, and did some furniture for local large mansions, let's say, who had quality, high-cost furniture. I remember doing one piece that was 1,000 years old, and 2 pieces for the same man. There was 650 bridal chests. They were 650 and 600 years old, with the names carved in. They were the original bridal chests, which were about 4 feet high. And the table I did was a trestle table, roughly hewn, but that was 1,000 years old, that table, yeah. So I did a lot of work for the churches in around the Clonmel area. Wanted to open a do-it-yourself shop myself. I had built a house after I got married. I built a house in Clonmel.
Now you got married in Ireland.
I got married in Clonmel. I met my wife at a commemoration ceremony for a local priest. He was Father Geoffrey Keating, who had died in the 17th century. He was a writer and a poet. and there was a commemoration on. I met her, and so I met my wife in a graveyard. She said it was deadly. So.
Now your wife's name and
Is
where
Joan Bowles, of course.
Uh-huh.
She originally Bowles, which was a Greek name. They originally came from Greece, and her grandfather was a Protestant minister, which is kind of unusual too. But anyhow, we married and had our oldest son was born in Ireland, and I had built a house in Ireland, and I had, of course, gone into business, and I wanted to open a do-it-yourself shop, and had awful hassle from the local council for a zoning permit where I wanted to put it, and eventually I gave up. Was doing some work at a church, doing the pews. We had newspapers covering the floors. I dropped something on the floor, went down to pick it up, and picked up a newspaper. The newspaper was 3 weeks old, and an advertisement for furniture refinishers in Milford, Connecticut, USA.
Wow.
Put it in my pocket, just tore off the piece. About a week later, well, let me see what they have to say. I wrote off about it. Didn't have any intention of coming to America at that time, absolutely none. And got a reply immediately that I had the job.
Really?
Yes. So we decided we'd take a chance. We were young at the time, and we'd take a chance. And a year later, sold the house. I was here, no, I'm sorry, I didn't say sold out everything else, but didn't sell the house, just in case things wouldn't work out here. I was here for 6 months before I finally sold the house. But worked and came to work at Wayside in Milford and worked there for 36 years. So
All from an advertisement?
all from an advertisement that was 3 weeks old in a newspaper on the floor that I picked up by accident. Yeah.
What a story. And you just retired there?
Just retired from there, yes, yeah. Last year.
What do you think about the U.S. When you came here first? What was your feeling? What did you
Well, I
think?
always had a, you know, I grew up listening to my parents, my mother and my grandfather talking about Coney Island and New York and baseball and hot dogs, and so I was very familiar with most things American, and always had a big respect for anything American because of that, I guess. And when I came, I guess everything I thought it would be. Had more trees than I thought was going to be here. You hear of America as the concrete jungle, except for out in the west. But it was everything I thought it would be.
Now, when you came here, just when you go back and let's do a little bit on the family, you and Joan came.
Just Joan and I and our oldest son, who was born in Ireland.
Okay, now the oldest son is?
Dermot.
Dermot.
Yeah, I have 3 boys.
Yeah.
Dermot, Patrick, and Robert.
Okay, so the 3 of you arrive and you come directly to Connecticut.
No, Joan had an aunt. My wife had an aunt down in New Jersey, who had been living here for 60 years and had only gone back to Ireland once, and had married a German. And she was elderly at the time. We went down to her for 3 days and then came back up to Connecticut. I did have the job. I had everything arranged to come back up here to Milford. And yes, there was just the 3 of us. Dermot was the oldest boy. He's just approaching 3 when we got here, 3 years of age. Yeah. And he had never seen a black man.
Yeah.
And when he arrived at Kennedy Airport, he wet his finger and went over and rubbed a black man's skin that was there. And then looked at his finger. So that is a true story.
That's the
first time he had never seen a black man before. Right.
How did you travel? That was you flew or?
Oh yeah, just TWA at the time. Out of Shannon into Kennedy. Yeah. Yeah.
What date? What year? What date?
That was 1968.
1968.
Yeah.
So you adjusted, then you got the job, and you
just settled down. Yes, settled down, and parents came over about a year and a half after we arrived here, thereabouts, and actually came over here. My father came here 5 times, 6 times after that, before he died, and loved it here. Would have settled here himself, he said. Of course, my mother was like home for her in a sense, you know.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Now, while you adjusted here, and then the family grew, and
The
you got
family grew.
involved with the Irish community.
Yes, I did.
About?
Yeah, I did almost immediately when I came here at first. Went to the Fish at that time in New Haven, which was shortly after we came here, and met some people there who I'm still friends with today. Then we got involved with the Irish Club in New Haven, and shortly after that there was a Cultúr branch opened up in Connecticut. They started in 1972 in the States, 72, 73. And they asked us to do some Irish Cayley dances at that time. And we did at that time for several years, and we were honorary members of Cultus to begin with, and then we became members. Later on, Joan was chairperson for the Connecticut, Western Massachusetts branch of Cultus Cultúr for 10 years. And the Cultus Cultúr is an Irish music group that formed together to promote Irish language, music and song. And I played drums with the group several times, and we had lots of fun, lots of sessions all over. Got to see a lot of the United States because of it, because we went to various places where there was the annual convention. Ottawa and in Canada, and Toronto, and 3 or 4 of the northern cities in California, St. Louis, Chicago, Washington.
Yourself and Joan had still have. But talk a little bit about how you get started in doing the
set dancing. Set dancing actually was revived in the north of Ireland, and then it was one of the oldest forms of Irish dance, really. Set dancing it was in the south for many years, was dormant. Mostly Clare, people from Clare dance sets, and sometimes from the Slieve Lucra area of Waterford, Cork and Kerry border. But then it was revived. It was revived in the north of Ireland for some reason and spread south, and then everybody got into it. And since there was none here, Joan decided we should do something about it. We should do some sets and some Cayley. So we started down in a little church basement down in Woodbridge, near New Haven, and went from that. We got quite a few almost immediately to come to the class. We never charged for a class, never a charge. It's just to promote the music and the song. And went from there to New Haven, and that's, I guess, 15, 16 years ago at least. And then I got an invitation from some of the members here to come up and do it here at the GAC. Jimmy Fahey and the Ruddies and encouraged us to do it, and this has been ongoing here for 12 years. Right. And lots of fun. Still getting a good crowd, yeah. It's good exercise. It's Irish aerobics at its best, I'll tell you. Yeah.
Another area we want to touch on and talk about, and you talk as much as you want really about, is you got involved with radio.
Yes.
Not just Irish radio, but just...
There was an Irish radio program on in New Haven area from WNHU, and Johnny Moran ran the Irish program. And he did it for several years. It's about 27, 28 years ago he started. And then Johnny was getting older, and he had to drive about 40 miles to get to the station. So we were always interested in Irish music, and we did have lots of music at home, and Johnny knew that, and he asked us if we would get us interested in doing the program. We refused 3 times, and finally said okay, we'd try it, you know. So for the past 17 years we've been doing the Irish program, Echoes of Erin, And 2-hour program was on Tuesday nights for many years, and the last years got changed to Saturday nights. Then I also got involved in the folk department. They asked me if I'd be interested in doing some programs. So about once or twice a month I'd do a 2-hour folk show, which I basically do Irish folk songs. I do North America, the British Isles, and Ireland, which will separate Ireland from the British Isles at all times. So I'm still doing that. Then I used to listen to jazz. I got back into running again in athletics. I used to listen to a jazz program. I like jazz. Excuse me. And the guy in charge of the jazz department asked me if I'd fill in for 3 weeks on a Wednesday morning. He was having problems getting somebody because it was a matter of getting up at 4:30 in the morning, going down to the station, being there at 5:30, and going on the air at 6 in the morning, from 6 to 8:30. So it wasn't easy to get somebody to do that. So 3 weeks turned into 7 years, and now I'm gently easing out of it because I'm spending more time in Ireland, and the show must go on no matter what, you know. So.
But it's fun to do.
Yes, it is. It is. It's a lot of fun.
You're on
We're a non-profit radio station.
But Echoes of Ireland is on what night?
Echoes of Ireland is on on Saturday nights from 6 to 8.
6 to 8.
Yeah.
From the radio, I'm sure it's from the radio, having all the records and everything. Then you also do DJ.
Yes, gradually got into DJ. Got asked a few times if we did it first of all, and we didn't, and then started to think possibly we should. So did some things, not quite dances as such, but party type things, and then started to get some equipment myself and put it together, and eventually started to do weddings and stuff, and met you on the way, and
another thing that's a lot of fun.
Yes, it is. Then we've done them together.
Yeah. Now, are you a citizen?
Yes, I am.
Were you a citizen because your parents?
I could have when I went for citizenship. When we went for our citizenship papers, myself, my wife, and my son, he had to become a citizen too because he was born in Ireland. At that time, they told me I could have claimed citizenship through my mother. But I said I'd prefer to do it with my wife. So yes, we were citizenship. My grandfather was a citizen. Just saw his citizenship papers recently, as a matter of fact. Yes. Yeah.
Well, we'll carry on. We'll talk about the 3 boys.
Yes.
And